The power of steam has done more to revolutionize life in the vastness of the continents of North, Central and South America than any other form of transportation. Not surprisingly, North American locomotive builders such as Rogers, Davenport, Cook and Baldwin dominated the motive power scene throughout all three continents, although, as we shall see, European manufacturers were not excluded altogether. In America, mergers resulted in three major names: Baldwin, Lima and American Locomotive Company, or ALCO for short. Baldwin were the most successful at exporting their products, continuing long after diesels had taken over at home. ALCO and Lima made forays into the diesel market with varying degrees of success. Today, nearly 35 years later, the lure of big steam is as strong as ever. We're halfway up Roller Hill, near Newburgh, Missouri, where Frisco 482, number 1522, is making a very slow but sure progress with a 21-car railfan excursion bound for St. Louis. American mainline steam power is a spectacle not easily forgotten. Frisco's number 1522 is one of 29 passenger 482s built for the St. Louis-San Francisco Railroad. She's one of several Baldwins you'll see in this program. She emerged from the company's Eddystone, Pennsylvania plant in 1926. She has 5 surviving sisters preserved mainly in public parks. Number 1522 was on display in the National Museum of Transport in St. Louis, Missouri, before being restored to working order by volunteers in the late 1980s. And just like in Britain, the help of the local fire brigade is needed to provide water on mainline outings. Although the railroad's ambitions of reaching the West Coast were never realized, the 1500s were ideal engines for heavy passenger trains on the Frisco's 737 miles of mainline between Kansas City, Memphis and Birmingham, and the 542 miles between St. Louis and Oklahoma City. Passenger cars used for American fan trips are usually in the hands of private owners and are often gathered from far afield for any particular trip. Many have their own generators for heating and lighting supplies. These engines had a reputation for immaculate turnouts, with kerosene and water baths at engine terminals keeping their glossy exteriors in good condition. Even the valve gear was kept shiny. After all, it was argued it was easier to spot defects on clean motion. Today's custodians of the engine have made many changes to her equipment to make her suitable for running over America's current main lines. Climb aboard for a look around the cab with engineer Don Worth.
Okay, in most respects, this cab looks like just any other average 1926 Baldwin locomotive cab on this side. It's an oil-burning locomotive. This is the firing valve. This is the atomizer. And this is the blower. Those are the three main tools that a fireman has at his disposal for keeping a clean, hot fire. Moving over to the right side here is where our engine differs from what it used to look like. This box here, as you can see, is to enable us to run a diesel locomotive that would be coupled behind us by MUing with it with the cables. We can actually run a locomotive from up here. We've never had to do that. We've done it as a test to see if it works. We have our pulse train link receiver here, and that's to allow us to use an end-of-train device and monitor our air pressure and all of that. This is 26L, which is a modern brake stand. This whole brake stand was added on when we rebuilt the locomotive. And the purpose of using this is the readily available parts, repair or otherwise, and easy swap out to meet regulation. Here we have an electric speedometer, which is wired to the trailing truck. We have our duplex air gauge. We have an airflow indicator, which is another diesel-era piece of equipment. There's our microphone for our train radio up here. We have a programmable radio with a touch-tone pad on it. This monitors the temperature on all of our driving boxes and on our bearings on the locomotive, plus our crosshead guides. And it scans each one intermittently there, and it tells us what the temperature is in relation to the temperature of the frame. We call that the ambient temperature, and this will tell us how much above or below frame temperature each one of those points is.
To get locos into position for fan trips, American railroads often allow locos to pull short freight consists for braking purposes and simply to make use of an otherwise unproductive move. The results, as can be seen, are timeless images of steam often out of sight of the admiring public. 1522 is on her way to a Burlington Northern Employees' Day at Springfield, Missouri. She's climbing Dixon Hill on former Frisco trackage, just west of Newburgh. Further east in Pennsylvania is the Reading and Northern Coal Hauling Railroad, which shares a common management with the nearby Blue Mountain and Reading Tourist Line. The result is that just once in a while, Class T1 484 number 2102, built just a few miles away in the Reading shops, gets to work on workaday coal trains, usually at the instigation of local rail fans. This is number 2102, doing work for which she was built, where she was built to do it. But appearances can be deceptive. 2102 has been a fan trip engine for over 30 years, based almost entirely in the northeast. Nearly 3,000 miles away in the Pacific Northwest lies the town of Portland, Oregon. Here, Southern Pacific Class GS4 484 number 4449, better known as the Daylight, was removed from a public park in 1976 and restored to working order. This was to haul the American Freedom Train on a nationwide tour to celebrate the bicentenary of independence. Since then, she's been restored to her original Daylight livery and hauls excursion trains over the length and breadth of the Southern Pacific network. The Daylight name comes from the Los Angeles-San Francisco crack expresses she was designed to haul, and her orange livery represents those duties. It's February 1989, and the Daylight is heading along Puget Sound in the state of Washington over Burlington Northern trackage, where she'll spend 2 weeks ferrying passengers to the Washington State Centennial Winter Games. .4449 is a Lima product of 1941 and is designed to produce 5,500 horsepower at 55 miles per hour. That's roughly 2.5 E-unit passenger diesels. She weighs in at a mere 237 tons. Most of the passenger cars are ex-Milwaukee Road Superdomes and spend the summer months conveying tourists on the Alaska Railroad. This beautiful engine has 3 whistles, 2 steam and 1 conventional air horn heard here. The previous anti-steam attitude of the Burlington Northern is probably explained by the antics of this line-side spectator. East of the Rocky Mountains in Cheyenne, Wyoming, lives the Union Pacific Railroad's Challenger 4664, number 3985. She was born in Alco Schenectady Works in 1943 and restored to working order by Union Pacific employees in the early 80s. She's the world's largest operating steam locomotive, although the Union Pacific did have bigger engines, the awesome big boy 4884s. Naturally, she's a popular fan trip engine, though a tendency to start fires limited her to the Union Pacific's main line between Cheyenne and Laramie. A conversion to oil firing during the winter of 1989 cured the problem, and number 3985 now has the run of the system. In August of 1990, by arrangement with American President Lines, she hauled hot eastbound double-stacker LAAP-1 between Cheyenne and North Platte, Nebraska. She took over from 3 General Electric diesels, and we see her heading the 7,000-ton, 143-car revenue-earning train up Archer Hill, east of Cheyenne, at a steady 35 miles per hour. Number 3985 may be the world's largest operable locomotive, but she's not the most powerful. That honour goes to the Norfolk and Western Railroad's preserved Class A 2664, number 1218, also built in 1943. The Challenger is taller, longer and heavier, but the A develops 114,000-pound tractive effort as compared with Challenger's 97,350 pounds. Incidentally, an LMS Duchess Pacific develops 40,285 pounds. Like the Challenger, number 1218 is today a fan trip engine, although a 190-car, 16,000-ton coal train through the Virginia mountains is more in her line. She also handled fast merchandise trains and heavy troop trains during World War II. Number 1218 was built in the Norfolk and Western's own loco shops in Roanoke, Virginia. Like the Union Pacific, the Norfolk and Western did have bigger engines in the shape of the immense Y6B articulate heads, which were built for heavy coal traffic. Today, the Norfolk and Western is part of the Norfolk Southern Corporation, which is probably the most pro-steam major railroad in America. Norfolk Southern operates an extensive program of steam excursions each year, particularly during the autumn. Here, number 1218 is helped through Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains by Class J number 611 and ex-Nickel Plate Road 282 number 587. The trio are en route to the National Railroad Historical Society's annual convention, which was being held in Asheville, North Carolina. Norfolk and Western's Class J 484 number 611, surely one of the world's most beautiful steam survivors. She's Norfolk Southern's other main excursion loco and covers many miles over the system each year. The Norfolk and Western Railroad was the last major railroad in America to dieselize, the last steam turn coming in May 1960. Number 611 was a truly state-of-the-art design intended for heavy passenger trains like the Powhatan Arrow between Norfolk and Cincinnati. Like number 1218, she was built in the Norfolk and Western's own workshops at Roanoke. She was designed to compete with diesels in terms of on-the-road performance, but more importantly, with a facility for high mileage and quick turnaround. 611 is the only survivor of 14 original engines, built between 1941 and 1950. She boasts 80-inch drivers, 80,000 pounds tractive effort, and a working boiler pressure of 300 pounds per square inch. Like all the Norfolk and Western engines, she's a coal burner. Here, 611 heads a May 1993 fan trip out of Asheville near Ridge Crest, North Carolina. She's restarting after a stop to adjust brakes for a steep descent ahead. In May 1993, number 611 took a passenger excursion both down and up Saluda Hill in North Carolina. Saluda is America's steepest gradient on a mainline railroad, 4%. That's 1 in 25 in British terminology. After the train was split into 3 portions and train passengers were positioned at vantage points along the track, 611 started her ascent. We'll leave the continent of North America now and move to a land where American-built engines can still be seen earning their daily bread. The Caribbean communist stronghold of Cuba is one of the world's last true steam paradises, but only for a few months at the beginning of each year. This is when the island's multi-gauged rail network is stretched to capacity to handle the annual sugarcane harvest. Locos are American products from Baldwin, Alco and Vulcan, and are thrashed without mercy by friendly crews, who spend the rest of the year repairing their steeds in rather basic workshops. Each central or sugar mill is run by Minas, the Cuban Ministry of Sugar, and is named after a historic figure, usually a South American revolutionary. Most mills have their own rail networks, and locos are run on clag-producing bunker sea oil, which is a residue from the refining process. Rail transport is used from chopping plants in the cane fields, known as copios, to the mill itself. Often long distances and runs over the state railway's main lines are involved. This is Central Alfrén Alfonso in Santa Clara province. This big Alco 280 handles much traffic on this system, including a level crossing over a half-finished motorway junction. Cuba's oldest line locomotive is this Alco Cook 260, now 104 years old and still earning its daily bread. She's second-hand from the United States, being former Southern Railway number 2500. At Central Jose Smith Comas, this Porter 040 tank is typical of numerous delightful smaller engines which lurk within the confines of the mills themselves, often out of bounds for visiting photographers. One of the 2-foot 6-inch gauge lines to the rolling hills of Cienfuegos province means very hard work for Central Maltiempo's fleet of Baldwin 280s, each with an additional tender for water supplies. Further east in Holguin province is one of the world's true narrow-gauge classics, the highly scenic and busy 2-foot 6-inch gauge system radiating from Central Rafael Frere near the resort of Guadalavaca. The line's steam power consists of 7 outside-frame Baldwin 280s, which were delivered over a 10-year period between 1909 and 1919. Although it is likely that steam will last as long as these railways do, the collapse of Cuba's Soviet trading partners, the glut of world sugar, and the increasing fragility of Castro's regime all spell an uncertain future for Cuban sugarcane steam. According to World Railways for 1954, the 3-foot gauge railways of Guatemala had 140 steam locomotives and no diesels. The Railway Directory and Yearbook for 1989 lists just 6, although we counted a few more, most of which were dumped. Baldwin 282 number 205 is the lone serviceable survivor. She's used for specials and very occasional emergency use. This route from Guatemala's Atlantic coast climbs over 4,000 feet in 61 miles, heading for Guatemala City, hugging the mountainside over numerous trestles and very sharp curves. The line once saw heavy trains of bananas with double heading and mid-train helper locomotives. The train today is formed of 4 preserved coaches, the rearmost of which is the President of Guatemala's personal saloon. Guatemala's railways once formed part of the International Railways of Central America, registered in New Jersey and controlled by North American fruit-growing interests. Nationalisation took place in 1968, although the original owners still maintain the line is theirs. The truth is that the modern Canadian diesels don't have much to do, thanks largely to a modern road network. The climb is now over, and the approach to Guatemala City is marked by the crossing of the impressive Puente de las Vacas, or Bridge of Cows. The climb to the capital from the Pacific coast is nearly as steep, with long stretches at 1 in 25, within sight of the 12,000-foot Agua volcano, as well as some of its neighbours. The President must need his saloon today, as the trains acquired a yellow caboose instead. The International Railway of Central America once ran the rail systems of both Guatemala and El Salvador, although the rail link between the two countries has now been severed. A booklet published by the government of El Salvador states that the railroads use electric diesel locomotive engines, as well as steam locos for tourist trains. Number 101 is one of two serviceable steam locos in El Salvador. She's an outside-frame Baldwin 280 of 1925. The railways of El Salvador, though pruned somewhat since the Civil War of the 70s, do still play a role with the transporting of freight within the country, though sadly not behind steam. It's often possible to carry out rebuilds and repairs to steam locomotives without expensive repair facilities or vast stocks of parts. This is the case at the Duran workshops, which form the southern terminus of Ecuador's Guayaquil and Quito line, where various Baldwins have outlived Alco diesels supplied in the 50s. And although there's not much traffic these days, just occasionally one of the surviving locos is called upon to do a spot of work. Here, Baldwin 280 number 53 shunts freight cars through the streets of Bucay, a small railway town at the foot of the climb into the Andes. The 3-foot 6-inch gauge Good and Quick line links the cities of Guayaquil, Riobamba and Quito and serves many small villages without proper road access. The line passes through some of the finest mountain scenery in the world, although the unstable nature of the surrounding geology means landslides and washouts are a major and reoccurring problem. Indeed, the line has only recently reopened in its entirety. For several years previously, operation in 2 or more isolated sections has been the order of the day. And it is a fact that the line's new French diesels can handle the vicious 1 in 18 gradients with much heavier loads. But it remains to be seen whether they'll still be serviceable in 10 years' time. At the mountain town of Huigra, the only possible route for the railway is along the one and only street. Since the new diesels arrived, steam only gets into the mountains very occasionally on tourist and excursion trains. Outside the hamlet of Sibambi is the famous Devil's Nose switchback, where all trains must change direction twice to zigzag up the mountainside. One of the local rail buses, single-decked in theory but double-decked in practice, descends the switchback before Baldwin 280 number 45, waiting at the bottom, attacks the hill. The train is propelled along the precarious ledge of very crumbly strata to the second reversal. The route just traversed can be glimpsed down in the valley to the right. After reversal for the second time, the train can continue its climb into the Andes. Despite being so close to the equator, the high altitude and pure mountain air combine to make an ideal environment for outdoor travel, whether or not the coaches were designed with this in mind. In the village of Alausi, the steeply graded village street is again the only possible route for the railway. Until 1993, this bridge outside Alausi marked the end of service over the southern portion of the line, with the section between here and Riobamba being completely washed out. But reconstruction and reopening has recently taken place, and this is the first ever steam-hauled train over the new section of the line. Beyond Riobamba, the line continues its relentless climb in the shadow of Mount Chimborazo, standing proud at a mere 20,696 feet. And although steam on this railway is now very rare, no more than 1 or 2 tourist trains per year, it seems likely that it will be possible to operate these trains for some years yet. Do make the trip if you can. It's not something you'll forget in a hurry. Temuco Roundhouse in southern Chile is home to several engines: Henschel 260s, Alco 282s and big 80-class 462s from various builders. Both building and locomotives enjoy national monument status, although it seems that this serves only to keep the cutter's torch at bay. It is from a rather wet Temuco station that 5-foot 6-inch gauge 282 number 714 prepares to leave. She's the only Temuco-based loco currently in working order, although others are being worked on. Number 714 will work tender first down the electrified main line as far as the village of Pua, and just for once, she's not built by Baldwin, being an Alco Montreal product of 1940. After running round, number 714 makes a trip up the soggy but picturesque Longuime branch, although the pictures would be better if the mountain backdrop wasn't lost in the mist and rain. Just about the only place to keep warm on a day like this is on the footplate. This particular engine has a plumbed-in casserole steamer, and regrettably it's not technologically possible to reproduce the mouth-watering aroma that emanated from the cab on this very attractive locomotive. On the return to Temuco, the main line crosses this unusual steel viaduct near Lautaro. The lure of steam in South America has a regular cult following, a phenomenon which has provided travel agent and rail enthusiast David Ibbotson with part of his living for over 20 years. So, does the decline in steam activity mean a decline in interest?
Well, if I may say so, the interest shown on this particular group, some years I have my doubts myself, but we had a good group this year, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it. But it isn't only the steam, of course, it's the very considerable variety in every country we go to of general atmosphere. It's now 21 years since the first trip came over with us, and really time has gone by, and it's really quite surprising when you look back how things have changed.
In the arid north of the country lies the oasis and railway crossroads of Baquedano, where the meter gauge Ferrocarril del Norte division of the state system crosses the private Antofagasta and Bolivia mineral line. Both systems have long since dieselized, although steam traction is available for the occasional special working. Number 3511 is a Type W Baldwin coal-burning 282. The cylindrical Vanderbilt tender makes her look younger than her 73 years. The thought of a 2,000-kilometre-long desert stretching from the Pacific to the Andes may seem unlikely. But this chunk of South America is the driest place on Earth. Rain has never been known to fall across most of the Atacama. The environment here is unforgiving, searing heat all day with near freezing temperatures by night. And yet this stark area exudes a strange beauty. What is most extraordinary is the number of people living in these conditions, drawing their livelihood, like the railway, from the region's enormous mineral wealth. Even so, the passage of a revenue-earning freight along here these days is by no means a daily occurrence. The difficulties of maintaining external moving parts in the desert dust must be considerable, and the discomfort of the crew in the heat of the cab is best left to the imagination. But were it not for the willingness and dedication of those responsible, it would not be possible to enjoy steam in the Atacama Desert. It may look like a Great Western country signal box, hardly surprising in view of the British involvement in the construction of Chile's railway infrastructure. But we're at Tiltil, a small station on the former Transandean route east of Santiago. The loco is a big 80-class 482, similar to those seen earlier in Temuco Roundhouse. The railway authorities have decreed that number 851 and her 3 coaches must have assistance over the mountains ahead, in the form of this superb Type 29 2cc2 DC electric of 1948, the only survivor of a total of 4 engines. Nevertheless, her 4,500 horses seem wasted today, when one considers that number 851 has been known to lift 13 coaches up here by herself. Even so, the strange combination attracts many admiring glances. The electric is there as much for extra braking as for pulling power. The Type 80 482s were ordered from Baldwin in 1929 for express service on the main line south from Santiago. They were intended as an interim design to handle heavy trains until the track could be upgraded to take even bigger locomotives. But so successful was the design that further orders were placed in 1937, 38, 40 and 47. A total of 39 engines were handling passenger and freight trains by 1948. A government commission in 1951 commented on the success of the class and recommended the acquisition of more. 30 were ordered. But by this time, Baldwin were wanting out of steam locomotive building and were consequently very expensive. The order went to Mitsubishi in Japan, and number 851 is one of this final batch. As late as 1982, Class 80s were handling substantial freight tonnages. When the diesels came, 8 of the engines, including number 851, were given heavy overhauls and placed in strategic reserve at Temuco, as we've already seen, and are now resident in the roundhouse there. The Ferrocarril Presidente Carlos Antonio Lopez is Paraguay's only working railway, named after a past president and one of the world's last state railway systems with 100% steam traction, and British-built steam traction at that. Virtually non-existent track maintenance or renewal is said to be the main factor in keeping the diesels at bay. The Paraguayan railways rely totally on 260s, 262s, 460s and 280s, primarily from North British, but also from Hawthorne Leslie and the Yorkshire Engine Company. Number 235 is a Glasgow-built North British 460 of 1910. She was purchased second-hand from the Argentinian Urquiza system in the early 70s. Although originally a coal burner, she now burns wood, like all other working engines on the system. 50 miles or so out of Asuncion is Sapucay, a country station so British in atmosphere that one would not be unduly surprised to see milk churns on the platform and all the trappings of a Great Western branch. But it's also the location of the railway's loco workshops, where all the machine tools are driven by a British-built, wood-fired steam piston engine. This is no heritage centre, but a working locomotive repair shop, where the processes of improvisation, cannibalisation and reconstruction grind along agonisingly slowly amongst the searing heat and 98% humidity. British influence doesn't stop at the locomotives. Other traditions, like cancelling the once-weekly passenger train because it happens to be a public holiday, are alive and well. Still, it makes a change from cancelling it because the locomotive's derailed or the track is damaged. This is a pilgrim special to a religious festival. On the buffer beam, a tub of sand for applying manually. Vegetation growth across the track since the passage of the previous train makes a very effective lubricant. Passenger traffic isn't normally this healthy, although there is some freight traffic of sorts. The bus between Asuncion and Encarnacion takes just 5 hours. The train is timetabled to take 15 hours, but usually takes longer. Number 53 is one of Paraguay's original North British 260s from 1910, and still the backbone of the line's motive power, although some of this class have been scrapped or lie out of use at Sapucay Works. The wagon behind the tender is for additional fuel. All trains in Paraguay are loose coupled, but a train breakaway is only one of the hazards likely to be encountered. Loco problems, running repairs in the middle of nowhere, and derailments are the rule rather than the exception. Although low track speeds mean damage is usually slight. Number 53 is already having problems with her reverser and looks in serious danger of losing her cowcatcher. Number 53 is supposed to work the empty stock back to Asuncion for another trainload of pilgrims, due to leave the capital at 9:10 in the evening. But it's already nearly 8 o'clock, and problems reversing the engine have caused heavy delays. After turning, she'll head back to Asuncion as quickly as possible in the rapidly fading light, presuming, of course, that she doesn't derail herself in the process.